Hi, this video is just a follow-up to my session at the OAC conference to talk you through the steps that it takes to set up OBS as I do it in order to provide some training over Zoom. And so we'll just walk through the different steps so that you're able to set it up for yourself if you want to try this for yourself. And so the first thing you need to do is to install a couple of programs. First of all, there's OBS itself. Then OBS NDI, which just allows us to output OBS to the software we're going to use to mimic a webcam. NDI 5 Tools, which is the software that mimics the webcam. And then the optional one at the end is Touch Portal. This is what I use to control OBS without having to touch the computer at the time, so I can keep the Zoom window open. There is a hotkey, a shortcut key way of doing it that I can show you how that, but I'll also then show you Touch Portal. But if you don't want to add an extra complication or an extra thing, don't worry about Touch Portal, but equally I'll explain all of that towards the end of the video when we come to that. So what I'm going to do now is swap you across to my screen so you can see what it looks like when you first start OBS. So when you first start OBS, you're confronted with the auto configuration wizard, and so for our settings, all you need to do is say I will only be using the virtual camera. Next, it comes up with some testing things and some settings that it's going to put in place. Just click Apply Settings and you're done, ready to go. Now OBS looks a bit daunting, but we'll walk through the different steps as we go along. The first thing I would do is actually pop out, you don't pop out the scene transitions, go to View and then Docs and get rid of scene transitions by there. And it just means then we've got one less thing down the bottom there that we have to worry about. Now if we go to Settings, I'm just going to change one or two things in settings before we get started. Now you may find the same as I do on my laptop that the settings window in OBS is quite annoying because actually you can't see the bottom of it. It hides behind the taskbar. So if you have that issue, what you need to do is just right click on the taskbar, go to taskbar settings, and then tick this one by here, automatically hide the taskbar in desktop mode, and your taskbar will disappear, and when you hover over it, it'll come back. And you can go back in and change that setting back afterwards if you don't want it to remain like that. Now the only setting we need to change is to go into audio, and in here you'll find that desktop audio is set to default, and instead we just want to change that to disabled, and same for mic auxiliary audio, change that to disabled. Because what it was meaning was that the audio from your computer would always be played across OBS going out to Zoom, and also your mic would always be going out. Now the reason we're going to change that is because in one of the scenes that we're going to set up, we're going to take out the microphone audio to just show a video during your PowerPoint or that kind of thing. So now that we've done that, we've got a scene by here set up. Now the scenes down at the bottom by here are the different views of things that we're going to have. And so we're going to set up 3 different views. One being just the camera, one being the camera and the PowerPoint together, and one being just the PowerPoint. So I'd use these. The camera one I would use during the start of the Zoom meeting when you're sort of welcoming people. I'd then switch to the one which is the camera and the PowerPoint so that then they can see me alongside the PowerPoint. And finally then I switch to the PowerPoint only when I'm playing a video so that they don't get to see me down in the bottom corner checking my notes and things for what's going to come next. So the first thing we need to do is to rename this scene. So if you right click on the scene and go to rename, we're going to call this camera. So just type in the word camera and press enter. Now the sources window by here is all the different things that is going to appear on this main window up here, which is what they are going to see when we use this as a webcam. And so for this scene, the only sources we need are the webcam and the microphone. We've got to add the two. No, we don't need to add the two separately. Apologies. We can add them both together, hopefully, and we'll sort of see that now. So you click on the plus sign down by here to add something. So just down the bottom by here, click on plus and go to video capture device, and we're going to call this webcam. and you need to make sure that you give it everything a name so that you know what it is, but you need to make sure that your source names can never be the same as your scene names. So we couldn't have called this camera, it would have told us that wasn't possible, which is why we've called the scene camera and this one webcam. So now when we click on OK here, it gives us this big setting window, and hopefully the device will just pop up automatically with your webcam like it has for me. If it hasn't, just click on the drop down and choose whichever is the right one for your webcam. If you're not sure, just click through each in turn until you find the one that is correct. Now there's lots of different settings in here that we can configure the video and change lots of different stuff, but we're not going to bother with any of that. All we're going to do is go down to audio output mode and say use custom audio device. That's the one we're looking for, and we're going to choose here the one that we think is the microphone. So on mine it's called microphone array, but again, if you're not sure, tick through them in turn and I'll show you how you can check it in a moment. So once we've done that, we just click on OK, and it may well appear up by here. You can see mine, the webcam on mine isn't a full 1080p webcam, and so it doesn't fill the whole screen, but we can sort that in a minute. But just to say about the audio, you can see down the bottom here, as I'm speaking, it's being recorded on the audio there. If you can see that bar moving back and forth, it means you've chosen the right thing as the microphone. So what we're going to do here, we'll right click on the picture up here, and we're going to choose transform and then fit to screen. And so then hopefully that will pop your webcam nice and large, and that's our first scene sorted, the camera scene, which is just the camera by here. So the next one we're going to do, then we'll click to add a new scene, and this one we're going to call PowerPoint, and we'll click OK. Now there's two things we're going to add here. So the first one is we're going to click here and choose a video capture device again. Instead of having to set up a new one, we can just use add existing and use the one we've already set up, webcam. And that means that whenever we change the settings on webcam, it will always change across camera and PowerPoint. So if we have to change anything, it'll change on both, and it just makes it a bit easier for us. Now I prefer for this little window to be down in the bottom left, so we're going to drag it down by there. Nope, just make sure it's in the right place. And what we need to add then as well is our PowerPoint window. So this is going to be a display capture, because we're going to be playing the PowerPoint on the second screen. So if I just show you that a minute, we've got two screens on the laptop, one which has OBS, and if I go to the PowerPoint and start the PowerPoint up, then the PowerPoint will close this preview by here. The PowerPoint will be playing on the second screen over there, and the first screen will be OBS in the background with zoom over the top when we actually come to it. So if I come back here so you can see what I'm doing, we will then choose to add the second screen. So we click on plus and we choose display capture, and we're going to say, we're going to call this one PowerPoint screen, and click OK. And you'll normally get a strange window like this which shows your first display. We don't want to capture that because that would look rather odd for people. So just in display down by here, we change that to display 2, and there we have our PowerPoint. Now if I was you, I would untick this box saying capture cursor, because what we don't want is when we go over the top of that window that we see the cursor moving around that screen, because it just doesn't look very professional. So then click OK, and you'll see we've got a bit of a problem because the PowerPoint has covered over our webcam. So what you need to do is, if you just drag the corner, you can pull it out of shape. So if you hold Control as you drag the corner, so hold the Control key down the whole time, and drag the corner, and it will stay the same size. So we want to take it probably to about by there, but actually we want the webcam to be over the top. So when we click on webcam down here, we'll click this up arrow and it moves it to the top. That the order of the sources here are the one that's on top will be on top in the window as we're looking at things. Now, because it does cover over a small amount of the PowerPoint by here, that's where you just need to be careful and check through your PowerPoint to make sure that actually there's nothing covering over by there. See, I prefer it in this corner. You may though be better moving it across to the right, which we'll do that now to sort of show that. If we put it over here instead, because often your text will be on the left hand side, and so moving it to the right will mean that we'll just cover over this corner where there normally isn't anything. I can't really say why I prefer it in the bottom left, but I do, and that's how I've set up. And it just means I've got to check through my PowerPoint, looking at it in OBS to make sure that I don't obscure any of the text as we're sort of doing things. So we're actually almost there. Our last scene to set up is just the PowerPoint on its own. And so for this one, we'll add another scene, and we're going to call this PowerPoint No Camera. Okay, so we know what it is. We'll click OK, and then we'll go to sources again, and we're going to add our display capture, and again it's already there. Add existing PowerPoint screen, and we're done. But what we want to do this time is actually add in as well the audio from the computer, because if we're playing a video, then we want them to be able to hear the video coming out. Now, we've not added that on any of the other scenes because actually if a notification pings in or something else happens, you don't necessarily want that to be heard across your Zoom meeting. But we're going to add that now. So what we're going to do is add an audio output capture is the one we want. So we're going to call this system audio, and default up here. You can leave it as default if you want, which will be just picking up whatever the Windows sound is. So that's probably the best one, so that if for some reason it does change, if you've plugged in an extra screen or something like that, plugged it into the TV or something, then it will still pick up the default one and always have the system audio there. And so you can see that's by there. And so if some sound got played on your computer, hopefully that bar would be moving and you would sort of see that it's the right kind of thing. And so that's actually everything we need to set it up. Now, what we need to do now, though, is set things up so that it's ready to actually output what is in OBS as a camera. Now, OBS does have, as we sort of chose earlier, this virtual camera down by here. But the problem with using that is it only sends the video, not the audio. And so we have to do some fiddly things to send the audio as well. And sometimes they can go out of sync. So instead, I'm going to show you a different method to sort of do that. And so the first thing we need to do is go to Tools. And up here you should find NDI output settings. That's why we installed the OBS NDI add-on earlier. And so when we choose this, you want to just tick main output, and you'll see that the main output name is OBS. Okay, so we're all sorted there. And then what we need to do is open up the piece of software we're going to be using to pretend it's a webcam for the computer. So if we go down here to start, we're going to go to N, where we're going to find the NDI5 tools, which is one of the other things we installed earlier. And in here, you'll find a little program called Webcam Input. So if we click that to open that up, and it'll just pop up in the corner by here, telling us that if you want to configure it, use the icon in the system tray. So let's come back down here. I'm going to put this taskbar back so that it stays in place. We'll just undo this setting we did earlier to hide the taskbar, and so it now stays in place. And you'll see that we can't see the NDI one down by here, but if we click hidden icons, now I've got two because I'm using another bit of NDI to actually capture and record what I'm doing for you today. But you should find the yellow one. If you hover over it, will say webcam input. If you right click on that, then you can choose the setting you want. Now I've got two because I'm running different computers here, but you should probably just find one, which is the laptop, and you want to choose OBS. And so if you choose that, then that should be all sorted, and there's no other settings in there that you need to change. It's all very simple. That's the only thing. The audio is all set automatically. You shouldn't have to worry about that. And the video, you can leave it as it is, or if you want, just change it to automatic, and it will just sort things out. So now, our final thing is to sort of check that within Zoom. So if we go to Zoom, we can open things up and change our settings in here so that they're ready for using this webcam input that we're using. So I'm going to go back here out of the way. And so what we need to do is come to settings within Zoom, go to video, and in video it says USB video device because it was set up to use the webcam before, but we're going to change that to New Tech NDI video. And you'll sort of see that there, and hopefully then you'll see the output from OBS. Now the problem is by default it's set to mirror my video, which as you can see is no good because our PowerPoint is the wrong way around. So change that and get rid of that by there, and then we're okay. We're not mirroring the video anymore. We've got the right kind of setting for what we're looking for. And then we go to audio, and in audio for the microphone, we don't want the microphone because, as we said, we want to be able to play the video from the PowerPoint at different points. So in here we come and you choose again this one called Line New Tech NDI Audio, and that will be correct. And you'll see then that nothing is happening there because the scene we're on in OBS is just the PowerPoint, so it's not picking up the microphone anymore. Once we've done that, we're okay. We can close that down, and Zoom is then ready to use the video and audio output from OBS. So what we're going to do then is start a meeting in Zoom. So you can see I've just already started this up for you, adding in a couple of participants because we need at least 3 participants to be able to do what we're going to do and how we're going to share our screen. Now, obviously, you can see the problem that if there's multiple people in the gallery view, our PowerPoint is going to get smaller and smaller up by here. Now, normally when you're sharing a PowerPoint or something like that, you would go to share screen, but we're not going to do that now. What we're going to do is instead this by here. You just click on the 3 dots by the side of your sort of picture, and you say Spotlight for everyone. And what that does is for everybody, it makes you the big and the main one, and it just puts all the others up the top by here out of the way. And so it means then that people can clearly see what's going on your PowerPoint, but also, as we'll sort of show by here, if we go back here to go to the PowerPoint view and back to Zoom. Sorry, there's a bit of an echo there on my other device that's connected to Zoom. So we'll put that out of the way. So hopefully that isn't too bad by there for you. You can see then that when it's in the Spotlight view, they can still see me, but also the PowerPoint there within Zoom. Okay, I'll just mute that so it's not coming through on the other computers that I'm using to sort of show Zoom by here. Now there's one more thing that we need to do, because our problem is that when we've got our Zoom window up by here so that we can see everybody, we need to be able to change what scene we're showing in OBS, and we need to do that easily without having to go back to the OBS window and back and forth and in that kind of way. Now, before I show you that, just one other thing to note. If we go to both screens once again, and what you can see is, so I'm here, I'm clicked on the Zoom window over here, and so I press the arrow keys and it doesn't move the PowerPoint on. You don't know I'm pressing the arrow keys, but I am, trust me. So what we need to do is actually click onto our PowerPoint in order for that to be the focus for the things to move on. And so you have to always remember that if you come back and click on something within Zoom to perhaps check the participants or do something here, then your arrow keys won't work because the arrow key commands are being sent to Zoom rather than to PowerPoint. You've always got to go and click back on your PowerPoint in order to be able to advance your PowerPoint on. But now the last thing that I wanted to show you is just sort of how we can control OBS without having to go back to that, because we don't want to keep having to switch between OBS, Zoom and PowerPoint to try and control things. And so we're going to look at 2 ways to do this. The first one is through hotkeys, and the second one then I will show you the program I use, Touch Portal, which runs separately then on my laptop. So if I just end this Zoom meeting by here, then it means we'll get rid of all of those, and I can sort of just open up a new one that's just me, so we don't have any issues with the sound coming through from elsewhere in that kind of way. There we go. So if I go back to OBS, let's say the first way I'm going to show you is with hotkeys. So I'll go back here so that you can just see the main screen, so you can see nice and clearly what's going on. And so in settings, we're going to go to, and then within settings, we're going to go to hotkeys. And you're going to see there's lots of different settings in here. Don't worry about all of these different things. We're going to scroll down until we find this section by here, which is going to show us the 3 scenes that we set up: camera, PowerPoint, and PowerPoint no camera. And we're just going to set up a hotkey within switch to scene. Now we need to set up a hotkey that's not going to be the same as anything else. So if we chose something like Control C, that copies something to the clipboard. So that wouldn't work because it would just copy something to the clipboard within PowerPoint or Zoom, wherever we are, rather than changing OBS. So what we're going to do is we're going to choose Control, Alt, and C. So 3 different things for that. So all you do is once you're clicked in here, switch to scene within camera, we'll press Control, press Alt, press C, and all three will come up by there. For PowerPoint, we're going to do Control Alt P, and for the no camera, Control Alt and N. Okay, and so that will just allow us to use those to switch between the scenes. So if you click OK, if I come back, so I'm on Zoom window by here, so you can see I'm on Zoom rather than being on OBS, but I can press Control Alt and C, and I switch back to the camera, Control Alt and N to switch to the no camera one, and Control Alt and P to come back to this one by here. And so it means I can seamlessly switch between them without having to worry about different things and about the focus within PowerPoint and that kind of thing. The last thing to show you then is Touch Portal, which is how I change the scenes and things within OBS rather than using the hotkeys. And so what you need to have done for this is to install Touch Portal, which was the optional one I mentioned at the start in the prerequisites, and as well as that, the OBS web socket server, which I also included the link to in the description below this video. So when you open up Touch Portal for the first time, it'll take us through some little steps. It tells me there's a new version available. I'm just going to say no to that for now. And then hopefully it'll start up momentarily, and we'll get this by here to sort out our thing. Now, you may well get it that the WebSocket connection comes up in the corner. That just means it's sort of connecting, but there may be an issue with that, and we'll discuss that in a moment. So you just work your way through this setup. So choose whatever language you need to choose. Instead of choosing, you would think we would choose OBS, but that will populate it with buttons that we don't want to use. So instead we're going to choose just to do an empty setup to begin with. We're going to tick this button, always try to connect to OBS when not connected, just to make sure that it tries to maintain that link. And then if you have something asking about allowing it through the firewall, it just tells you need to make sure you allow the Java platform through the firewall, otherwise it won't work. And finally, we'll just click through these last pages. They're just telling us a bit more about how to use Touch Portal. And then we've got this by here. For some reason it's telling me a main page already exists. I don't know why it's telling me that, but we've got this blank section by here. Now, this is where we can populate some buttons by here. And so if you just click on one of these, then what we're going to do is scroll down to OBS, and we're going to choose, well, it popped them up that way. So we're going to choose an action. There's lots of different things that you can get it to do, but we just want set scene, because all we're doing is creating the buttons to choose the different scenes. Oh, sorry, I forgot. It's telling me it's not connected to OBS, and that's where we just need to sort this out by here. So if we go back to OBS, in Tools, we've got our WebSocket server settings, and in here we just need to set this password to something that we can remember, and then put that into Touch Portal as well. So for now I'm just going to call it WebSocket, just to use as the password, but it's better for you to use something that you can remember yourself. So if we then go to settings up by here and choose OBS, it says WebSocket password, so I'll just put WebSocket in there as well, and then hopefully it'll then sort of work. So just to sort of prompt it, if we click on this connection by here, we can say connect with OBS, and it tells us a new WebSocket connection, so hopefully that's worked. So hopefully now when we click on here and scroll down to OBS and set scene, it's no longer telling us it's not connected, but instead in here we just choose the scene. So we're just going to choose camera. Now you can set over here different graphics for the buttons and things like that. We're going to keep it simple. We're just going to put some text in at the moment and call it camera. Okay, and then click save. So see, it just says cameras, but you can choose different graphics and things like that if you want to there. We're then going to do our next one, which is going to be our scene for set scene. Oh, whoops, I accidentally clicked on that one. So just right click, delete that action by there, the set profile. So we don't want to do that. Just the scene selection, and we're going to choose PowerPoint. And again, just put that button text in there for PowerPoint. Save that there. And then our last one of our scenes by here, we're going to do our scene for no camera. So we'll just choose the PowerPoint no camera, and over here we'll just say no camera. So we've got our three buttons there: camera, PowerPoint, and no camera. Now the last thing that I set up on mine is actually the left and right buttons for advancing PowerPoint on and back. So we're going to choose by here a virtual key press, and then we've got to choose left and add that. So it just says key press left, and we're going to put in by here left, and we're going to choose over here a virtual key press for right. Now there is a way that you can get it to make PowerPoint the focus in amongst this button, because you can add lots of different things down here. The problem is I can only get it to work about 50% of the time, and so until I find a better solution, I wouldn't bother taking you through the steps to try and sort that out, because actually, you know, it's not really that necessary. And so there we've set up Touch Portal and it's ready to go. Now what we need to do then is, if I come back here and switch to camera, hopefully I can sort of show you. I've got my tablet here, and so on my tablet I've installed Touch Portal as well on here. And so if I go to and open up Touch Portal on here, then hopefully you'll sort of see it says initializing, and then hopefully it'll just connect in a moment and we'll get the buttons up. There we go. It just took a moment. I thought it was going to have a problem. And so you can see there it's exactly the same as what we just set up within Touch Portal. And so what it means then is that by pressing the buttons here, I should hopefully change the scenes within OBS. So when I press PowerPoint, I switch to there, and so you can sort of see if I'm showing you better here. If I press camera, I switch back to camera, and that kind of thing. No camera, I switch to no camera. And so then it also means that, as I say, I've got these buttons down the bottom. So if I just click to focus the PowerPoint, I can press right and left to advance through the PowerPoint. And so that's Touch Portal, just a different way to operate things if you've got a tablet, or you could use that on a phone if you wanted to do it that way, or you might prefer just to use the hotkeys that we looked at earlier. And so hopefully that's given you an overview of how I set up OBS to run the training that we do on Zoom. And if that's something that you want to do, then please feel free to give it a go. Look through the video, go through all the different settings that I've gone through. But if you do have any issues, don't be afraid to contact me and I'll try and help you out to try and see if we can do it this way, which I think just looks really professional, because it means that when we sort of share the screen, they're not seeing any background stuff as we start up a PowerPoint or anything like that, but also they're able to see me clearly as well as seeing the PowerPoint at the same time. So hopefully that's been helpful, and hopefully it'll help you to do really professional training sessions and things like that on Zoom.